Not doing anything fancy here today, just asking for the messages to come through from the spirit guides, whether those are ancestors or the elements of nature, or if you have angels or gods and goddesses, whoever it is that you extend and offer your prayers to when you pray. The first message that came through the White Light Oracle is number 29, the Beatitude of Sacred Rapture. And I want to read just a few lines that really stood out to me. If you or another are battling something, you can choose to feel awe and respect rather than fear and despair. A beatitude is a blessing, the highest blessing. The oracle of beatitude of sacred rapture brings guidance that the beautiful, healing truth of spirit is your reality. All else is a nightmarish misuse of imagination by the ego. When you sense spirit at work in your life, totally trustworthy and having your back, you're seeing clearly. When your hopeful heart feels empowered, you are in a zone of truth. Trust in those moments. Recall them whenever you can. Count all your positive moments and wins, no matter how inconsequential they may appear. Every one of them is a precious drop of divine nectar nourishing your heart. Remember that even in the tremors, trials, and tribulations of human life, you are a radiant soul who is growing ever more luminous through the wisdom, compassion, and strength distilled through those experiences. Look for the light beneath all phenomena, and you shall know the peace and love that is with all beings always. I find this to be a really soothing and important message to remember. When you or a loved one is going through a dark time, it's easy to believe that you'll never hear good news again. That every time you receive new information that it's going to be scary or negative. That's trauma. That's PTSD. And so I think it's really important to identify and hold on to every little bit of optimism you can. And it's important, whether you're the person going through this or you love someone who's going through something hard, it's important to retrain your brain and theirs by pointing out and holding on to that feeling of when things go right, to remind yourself and your loved ones that every day isn't cloudy, right? The sun still shines. Even when we're suffering, the sun still shines. And we can continue to find beauty and hope in the smallest wins. In fact, they all add up. It's important to chalk those up, to rebalance the scales against the negativity. And now I want to talk to the Tarot of the She to find out. I swear, I promise you, I went through these again and again and again to turn around all the cards that were oddly, for some reason, they were mixed. Some face up, some face down. And let's just see. Was that the only one left face up? Apparently. So we'll let this be the center of our world. The central message of this reading, the context. And let's just see what else the spirits connected to this deck want to say to us. This will be the last one. Now it already knows that I'm not reading anything backwards, so we're just going to put everything out. And see what kind of sense we can make of it. You know, in a situation that is unimaginably difficult, that brings up our deepest fears, that challenges our mortality or the mortality of the ones that we love, it can be difficult to find that temperance between hope and fear. But that really is the great task on a day-to-day basis. You know, you have good days and you have bad days, and it's hard to really put your finger on the truth. I mean, how can we? No one can predict the future, right? But it's hard to sort of wrap your mind around the reality of a situation that can be so overwhelming and uncertain. And unfortunately, it's really, really easy to get wrapped up in the nightmare, to catastrophize and imagine all the worst case scenarios. That's easy, right? So, hope then is tool, a tool to temper that fear and catastrophizing. It's incredibly necessary, because if you allow yourself to get in that cycle of fear, that's going to impede your healing. We really do create the reality that we live in. This sort of our brains create the context. Our understanding of the world conditions our experience of the world. So it's really, really important when we get scary news or when we're living in a state of uncertainty to do our best to use hope as a tool. Whether or not we believe it, we have to try to find a way to believe it, but even faking it until you make it is better than letting yourself get stuck in that negative cycle, than letting yourself go down that drain of negative thinking and of expecting the worst. Our brains are very malleable. They're easily influenced. And you have to be really careful what kind of information and messaging you take in. If you go down a Google rabbit hole about a diagnosis, for example, the truth is it's not helping anybody. It's, I think, a symptom of wanting to be able to control the outcome, but no one has control over the outcome. Even the doctors don't have that kind of control. They have the best shot. Modern medicine has the best shot of helping heal things like that, but the ultimate outcome is outside of anyone's control. The best thing we can do for ourselves and for our loved ones is to have high expectations, positive expectations of what the outcome could look like, to really believe in miracles. Believing in miracles doesn't make us naive. It makes us smart, because, as I said, it's a tool we use to temper the fear. And that's the best thing we can do for ourselves in times of uncertainty. Returning to the world card as context, or maybe as answer to whatever questions on our mind, even below our conscious thought. This card is so profound because it is the completion of the major arcana. It is all things united. It is the return to synthesis of the oneness that has differentiated itself throughout the Fool's journey through the major arcana. It is the question and the answer. It represents the entire, I think, journey and purpose of one's life. And it is moments of great distress and crisis that take us there, that cut away all the meaningless bullshit that populates the minutes and hours and days and weeks and years of so much of our lives. All of that falls away, and what becomes important is this question of purpose and meaning. Beyond the fear and the hope and the uncertainty, because that has to do with time and outcomes. It's linear. These are tools, as I was saying. This is something more eternal. It's below all that. It's still. It's what is revealed through our hearts when we take those moments of stillness. Look at the sigil on the heart of the horse here in the Chariot card. Here, the horse is part of the individual that's riding it. These aren't separate. This is one entity, a single spiritual entity that, like the same imagery that we see in the world card, two halves are united. In several ways, we have the human and the animal, we have the black and the white, we have the land of the living and the land of the dead united in this figure. And a clear will to charge forward in the face of whatever may come. And I think that will can only come from a connection with that sense of purpose that comes through moments of, I guess I'm calling them stillness, but it's more than that. Those moments of deep connection with what it means to be alive on this earth, and connection with our own sense of purpose, like just why are we born, why do we die, and not just why as a species in general, but each of us personally. What does our life mean to us when all of a sudden we're threatened with losing it? I mean, any of us could go at any time. We know that. You could walk outside and get hit by a bus today, get struck by lightning, choke on a hot dog, whatever. But it's different when you kind of see it coming, or you have that moment of threat. We really could consider this a gift. You know, when when someone's life is taken from them in an instant, there's a blessing in that as well. There's no suffering. But the gift of suffering and the uncertainty of not knowing whether you're going to recover or your loved one is going to recover is that you have room and time and motivation to ask and answer these most fundamental questions. Here, the sigil is in the Empress's womb, the same sigil. Here in the Dancer Queen, she has it painted all over her body, but the element of water flows from her heart, the gift of truth. Emily Carding calls it in this deck. What comes out? What comes up when we start asking those questions? When we can be completely honest with ourselves. And the message is that it's in these times of crisis, could be the only times that we really have that clarity to be completely honest with ourselves. Because everything else matters so much less when we're facing the reality of mortality. What truth comes up? What truth comes out? What new emotions, what new ideas, what new relationships, experiences, realizations can we give birth to? What can be born from this suffering, from this crisis? What kinds of values, what kinds of value can be born out of this? What is there to be grateful for? These are important questions. And Maker 9, Nine of Pentacles, I would say, don't be afraid to count your blessings. I think, again, as a tool of hope, it's very useful to look around and take account of all of the things that you have to be grateful for that maybe you didn't even realize before this happened. Or maybe they were birthed through this distress. Maybe they weren't here before, but this crisis has changed you and your family and your friends and your loved one and your perspective on the world. And there's all these new blossoming flowers that you can take the time to smell and love and cherish. Nothing is too large or too small to be put on this list. Maybe you should literally physically write them down. That's what's going to help you hone this tool of hope. You know, you're going to start to believe it sooner or later. The more you say it, the more you focus on the beauty that can come through stormy moments, the faster that storm can dissipate. The less likely you are to be stuck in this nightmarish cycle of negative thinking. So this too is a tool that you can will yourself to take advantage of. Courage and hope. I don't want any of us to think that we don't have that within us. To anyone who's ever felt like they're a negative person or they lack willpower, these are just things you tell yourself. And you can change at any moment. And what better moment to change than in one of crisis? It's never been more important to change than in a moment of crisis, as a matter of fact. Take that as an opportunity. You have it within you. We all have it within us. It's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of wielding the tools, redirecting your thoughts, taking the reins of your own destiny. Truly, really and truly. I know that times are uncertain when we're thinking in a linear fashion about what's going to happen and trying to have control over the outcomes. But when you let that go, you realize that you actually can control more than you think. You can't control outcomes. You can't control time. You can't control other people. But you can control your own perspective and thoughts, and those make a much bigger difference in your experience of the world than you may have previously thought. So here's to you and to your loved ones and to the healing that will inevitably happen. Sending you love and gratitude and looking forward to our next opportunity to convene.